The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
All right. Episode what? I don't even know.
15?
15? Is it 15?
It's a monumental episode.
Still going.
It's a monumental episode for many reasons.
Definitely.
I'm Derrick Freeman.
I'm Nigel Hall.
We are the Shadow People.
We are the Shadow People.
Wow. Today, we have a very special episode with an extremely special guest. DJ Jazzy Jeff. He'll be in the announcement, so I guess I can say
he'll be in the announcement. Yeah, totally
we got DJ Jazzy Jeff coming up, y'all. Looking forward to talking to him. A wealth of knowledge, a musical legend. If you don't know who he is, I don't know why you're watching this podcast. But anyway.
Yeah, for real. But we're also coming off of Jazz Fest, and I think that some of us are. I'm starting to feel back to normal, but I'm leaving to go on tour tomorrow.
Well, that is normal.
Well, that's normal. Yeah, we're back to normal, and it's gonna be cool. I get to go and do some. I'm playing at Dave Chappelle's.
The ranch thing?
Yeah.
Oh, that'll be awesome.
His club.
Uh-huh.
That's going to be really cool. Looking forward to that. But I know you wonder why.
The same high school?
Huh?
You and Dave Chappelle?
No. Oh, no. He went to Duke Ellington.
I thought you went to Duke Ellington.
No, I didn't. No, I ain't going to no Duke Ellington. I ain't had that kind of money. I still don't have that kind of money.
Talent. I thought talent alone got you.
Shit, I wish. Yeah. Look, let me tell you something. You think I'd be sitting here if the talent alone got me somewhere? Let me tell you something.
Good point.
But good point. but since I know you keep wondering why I keep asking you when your birthday was, and I was gonna wait to give this to you.
Oh shit!
But I have a gift for you since I'm not going to be here.
Wow.
On your birthday, I have a gift for you to open in front of the world, and it's a card too.
You want me to read the card?
Shake the motherfucker.
Should I read it out loud?
You can read it out aloud if you like.
All right.
That's right. See, we give presents on this show.
Okay, I like this. It is my birthday coming up.
Yeah.
Oh, look at true facts. Check that out. I met him one time at the Apollo. I got to tell you that story.
That's crazy.
Here's to stepping into tomorrow in style. Grateful to embark on this journey with you. Shadow People.
That's right.
Love it, brother. We're gonna leave that. Hey, we should put this.
We can put that right.
Say that
there.
for the set right there. Danny Glover letting us know we getting all this shit.
Yeah. That's
cool. I'm pretty sure this is some sneakers just because I know you. See? And it was a sneaker box. Just put it like in a square box to throw me off.
Could be a.
Oh, look at these. Oh, the throwbacks. You know I love it. Okay, I'll be wearing those next episode. Check those out.
See,
I love the classics.
See,
thank you, brother.
Yeah, man.
Look at that. Bro. Look at us. Appreciate you. Love you, man.
That's how we do. My birthday's on the 15th of September.
I already know. And we'll be still. You know what? We'll be still going in September.
And we still gonna be going in September. We keep going.
Shadow People is here, baby.
Shadow People is here, and a lot of people have been asking if they can come on this show. And I'm sure after this episode, there are gonna be a lot more people asking.
Good luck.
Damn.
No, I'm just saying the list is getting longer.
Yeah, exactly.
Just facts.
I do want to say though, however, damn. Never mind. Check this episode out. This is I don't know what to say because the reason I'm speechless is because what y'all about to see, we've already recorded. I'm gonna just put the shit out there. We've already recorded it. We keep no secrets on this show. We're not even gonna do that.
Yeah.
We just like to play shit in order so that it can seem feasible. But we just got a lot of knowledge dropped on us, just like y'all about to get a lot of knowledge.
Like so much
that
we might have to split it up into two
so
episodes.
So much that we're probably going to have to split this up in 2 episodes. But I want to take an opportunity to thank Jazzy Jeff for coming and spending some time with us and giving us so much knowledge, because what I think the world needs, it helps me to realize that I'm not as crazy as I'm made to think I am sometimes. There's a lot going on in the world and in the industry, but more so in the world that connects and directly reflects upon the industry.
Yeah.
And man, y'all are in for a treat. So here's part one of the interview that we did with Jazzy Jeff. And we hope that you enjoy it. And say happy birthday to Derrick Freeman.
Ta-da.
Yeah, that's right.
You know what?
And wow. Yeah.
And just so you know, my birthday's Saturday and the shenanigans have started.
Already.
Celebrations have started.
Damn.
Birthday week in full effect. So here I go. I'm popping one of these.
Hey.
This is a wobble. This is Big Frida's drink. Of course, you're drinking the sexy as usual.
Sexy, because I'm a grown man.
Again, as always, we want to thank Crescent Canna for providing us with these beverages.
After these beverages, we'll be right back.
Anyway, so yes, this is a wobble, a new flavor from Crescent Canna. This is actually a newish because they had it out before, but they had to reformulate because of Louisiana laws and all that. But anyway, It's very delicious. It has THC, it has caffeine. So I'm about to get totally jacked.
He's about to.
God, thank you. Anyway, on the other side of this break, y'all, we got Jazzy Jeff Part 1. Stick around here on the Shadow People. I'm Derrick Freeman.
I'm Nigel Hall.
Ta-da.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are here at the Shadow People Podcast. I'm your host, Nigel Hall.
I'm Derrick Freeman.
And we have a very, very special guest. We got my homie. He's one of the proprietors of what real hip-hop stands to be today. And you might know him from a couple of things. One of them being the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. The one that was always flying out the window. It's this dude here. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the podcast a friend of mine, a friend of yours, friend of the podcast, the magnificent DJ Jazzy Jeff. Welcome to the show, sir. Well. What's going?
Pretty good there, man.
What's going on, man? It's good to see you, brother. Got your head nice and clean. Pause.
It's time for you to go. It's time. Just let you know.
Hey, look.
Tell him, Jeff.
Look, he was telling me earlier that because it's getting Rasheed Wallace up here, and
hey man, listen. When I get to the point that I'm fighting with a hairline, I'm not fighting no more. It won.
I know that's right. Yeah, it's
I tapped out.
Yeah, that's where we at too. Look, man, it's good to have you on the show. We are one of the things I wanted to talk about was there was this clip that went viral of you not too long ago that you were talking about releasing your music and how important it was for it to just not sit on a hard drive. You said, I remember last time I was down there, you were talking to us, and that was when Eric was there, Eric Roberson. Shout out to Eric Roberson. We were just talking about Die Empty, man. Can we talk a little bit about that concept? Because I made a statement on this one of these last episodes where I was just talking about how important it was to not be competitive with your music. And I think that part of the reason that people hold on to their shit the way that they do is because they want to compete with somebody when they drop something. So let's talk a little bit on the concept of that, if you would, please.
It was funny because a friend of mine introduced me to an author named Todd Henry. Mm-hmm. And Todd Henry is the one that actually wrote the Die Empty book. And when I met him, it was a couple of things that he said that completely blew my mind. And one of them pertaining especially to that is he was addressing a group of producers and singers and songwriters. And he asked the question, what was the wealthiest land in the world? And of course, everybody kind of, frowned and everybody started throwing out ideas and it's Dubai, it's Saudi Arabia, it's California. And he paused and he said, the wealthiest land in the world is the graveyard because that's where most of you are going to take your ideas. And I walked immediately out. I walked out.
Yeah.
Because it was so much pertaining to the Die Empty thing that we all have half done songs. We all have full songs. We have ideas that we did. I'm waiting for D'Angelo. I remember back in the day when everybody was like, they play you a really good beat. And you say, what you doing with that? And you say, I'm waiting for Nas. Or I'm waiting for Jay-Z. Well, Nas and Jay-Z never got that shit. And it's still sitting on somebody's hard drive.
Right.
And D'Angelo never got it. But I realize we have this thing that we do not release the stuff that we do. And I think getting older and having friends like Biz and Clark Kent, rest in peace, that are no longer here, it makes you understand that if tomorrow's not promised, releasing your music tomorrow is not promised either. So, it was one of those things that I was like, okay, if I got 1,000 songs, you're never going to get someone to buy your 1,000 songs. And this is me speaking to the up and coming producer who is waiting to sell everything that's on their hard drive. If you got 1,000 songs, you're not going to sell 40 of them. You're not going to sell 20 of them. Take it from somebody who's been doing this a long time. So if you sell 10, what are you going to do with the 990 songs that you didn't sell? And I'm just of the mindset that music, sell what you can, get the rest away. Get the rest away. Like, you should not die with anything creatively left inside of you. You need to empty your entire creative bladder.
Right. Exactly. I fully agree with that. And I remember when you were talking about it, I just started thinking, and I mean, you and I have even talked about this before, because I've shown you a ton of shit that I recorded and whatnot, and you and every time I'm like, man, I'm waiting to put this out, and you just look, you give me that face, and I'm like, nah, man, all right, I gotta just put it out. So that's definitely something that I have thought of over the years, or
it's
over
not an easy thing to do though.
Right. Well, I mean,
especially where we came from, coming up in the music business, especially in the 90s, in the 80s, the 90s, it was all about what can I sell? It's all about how am I going to be rich? I'm going to do this song for Whitney Houston, and this is going to change my life. And the way that the landscape of the music business has changed, I think it's more important to get it out there in the world and let the world determine what the value of the song is and its place, instead of thinking that we control that, because we don't. I had very close friends that were VPs at record companies that I used to go in their office and they would give me 1,000 cassette tapes that I would do mixtapes on. And they were cassette tapes of demos that they never listened to. And I'm thinking of the people that I knew that would package those tapes up and send them, and sitting there saying, somebody is listening to my shit right now and my life is about to change, and never knew that this was some hard out here for a pimp shit that somebody just gave me the tape for me to make a mixtape off of. So I'm me knowing the back end of that that beat that you thought was going to get to Jay-Z, I don't know if Jay-Z ever picked a beat out of that bin.
Right.
I don't know if anybody ever picked a beat out of that bin. Most of those connections are through people that know somebody, and not necessarily, I'm going to send this cassette tape. Growing up in Philly, I remember when people used to get a bus ticket and would go to 550 Madison Avenue and stand outside of Sony waiting for an executive to come out to give him their tape, not realizing that the executive has access to the basement parking lot, and he drove right past you.
Right.
Right, exactly.
Quick question for you about so you're talking about, obviously not being able to sell 1,000% of your music or not even 1%. But what's your approach to licensing music? Like, do you find that you like specifically write shit for licensing, or is it just happenstance that a lot of your stuff gets licensed? Well, what's your approach to that? Do you think you think we should spend time actively trying to do that, or no?
I actively make music.
Yeah.
I don't actively make music for a purpose. Like it's almost like a purge. If you got it in, you get it out. Once you get it out, I believe that it will find a place. You know what I mean? Like somebody asking, if somebody walked in and said, "Hey man, what you got?" If you don't have nothing to play, then you lost the battle right there.
True.
But you at least getting it out, getting it out and having it in a playlist or having it somewhere where you can play it. That's when you can think about licensing. That's when you can think about who might need this. But to me, the most important thing is to get the music out, get it recorded to the point that you can play it back. And I know a lot of us have done songs on a computer that we don't feel comfortable, playing it for somebody. But at the end of the day, if somebody can hear the idea, you should at least put it down for them to hear the idea. You can go back and expand on it, but telling somebody you got music without being able to play it serves no purpose.
Right. Exactly. I have a couple of questions because there are you know how much of a geek I am about records. And there are two there are two particular records that I want to talk about that you were at the helm of, and one of them is Who is Jill Scott? I want to talk about that record because my son loves that record, but he doesn't. He about to find out now. He doesn't know that he may or may not have been conceived to that record.
Not just him.
Not you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But that record, and I also want to talk about The Magnificent. Because,
man, I love
because
it.
that record, there's a song on that record called Love What You Do and Do What You Love. And that record, that particular song on that record, I mean, that entire record, there's a whole bunch of.
The one with J Live on it.
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of joints on that record. That to me is a lot like Who is Jill Scott, is you can play it from start to finish. There ain't no skips on that record. But that particular song got me through and continues to get me through a lot of shit. Because I think you and I have talked about the frustrations that I have had, in recording music and putting music out and dealing with this person and labels and this, that, and the other. But let's talk about those two records and talk about how. There's a whole month. There's tons more records that we could talk about in that, but specifically those two.
Well, it was funny. I had a production company in Philadelphia called A Touch of Jazz, and there was 6 of us that were there. And I really started this production company because I wanted to make the music that I wanted to hear, and I wanted to make it with like-minded people. When I started it, it wasn't the most popular thing to do because this was pre-digital era. As you see the tape machine in the back.
Yeah, we did notice that.
It wasn't the easiest.
That's the first thing he talked about was
records.
that damn tape machine.
Yeah, it was not the easiest thing to make records. It wasn't the most cost-effective thing. One of the things that I did is through the success of Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, I just invested my money into equipment. This is something that I wanted to do. And I invested it, and the funny thing is I invested it before I realized if I even had an outlet. I was just like, you know what? The most important thing is the music. And I want to be able to create my music without anybody stepping in the way. And that, even in the early days of A Touch of Jazz, of us trying to shop songs, it's one of those things, no one really wanted to give you a shot when it came down to, your own music and It was a club that you kind of had to be in. And what ended up happening was a friend of mine introduced me to Jill. Jill was a poet in Philly. That people around the poetry scene in Philly, you know, from Rich Medina on down, you know, Ursula Rucker, they knew Jill.
Ursula.
And they didn't realize that Jill sang also. And it was actually my son's mom. Amir's mom was the one, her and Jill were best friends. And she introduced me to Jill, and we sat and had a conversation, and it seemed like it wasn't the right time. And we had a conversation and went our separate ways. And about a year later, I was driving down the street, and Rich Medina had a record store, and Jill was out in front of the record store. And when I pulled up, I looked, and she was like, you know, hey, Jeff. And I was like, hey, Jill. And pulled over, and we got into a conversation. And we literally talked for about 10 minutes. I drove to the studio, and I went through a bunch of DAT tapes of music that we had, and I gave her about 2 songs, and she left. And the next day she called and she said, hey, I got something. And I drove to her house, and I picked her up, and we drove on the waterfront, and I parked, and Jill sang Long Walk. And I was like,
wow.
Okay. And we went to the studio and recorded it. And we literally probably recorded 9 of those songs in a week.
Yeah.
Because she was, you know, Jill's an incredible writer. We caught the vibe, and we just recorded.
You got to jump on that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
And this was also at a time, you know, going back to that Die Empty thing, when everybody kind of hoarded their music. I did something very different, especially at that time, because I was making mixtapes, and I had a CD tower that had 12 CDs. You put the master CD in, push the button, and it burns all of these CDs. I took that 9-song demo, and I might have burnt 100 CDs, and I gave it to everybody I knew. Everybody I knew that loved music. They were playing this, and Sony, and everybody in Sony thought she was signed to Sony because everybody was playing it for the enjoyment in their office.
Wow.
And it literally got to a point that I got a call from Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis that somebody gave them the CD, and Terry Lewis was like, hey man, I'm driving around listening to Long Walk in my car. And he was so baffled, because he's like, the first song on this project is a song called Love Rain. It's a poem. He was like, how the fuck are you doing a poem as the first? Like, it was so left of center. But once again, we did not have any guardrails around us. We were just making what we thought was dope.
Right.
And they really wanted to sign Jill. We ended up going to Minneapolis and sitting talking to him. And I ultimately end up going with Hidden Beach, because I've known Steve McKeever from the Mo Jazz days. But the thing that got me is when Steve heard it, Steve looked at me and Steve said, finish it. And it was kind of like, so you don't want to bring no more producers in? He was like, no, y'all got it. Finish it.
Right.
So Steve allowed us to finish that record. He allowed us to mix that record. He allowed us to master that record. So that record basically was an exact interpretation of what we wanted it to be. And I don't know any other record company or people like that. I know that wouldn't have been the case with Jam and Lewis. But Steve was just like, finish it.
Well, let me ask you a question. Do you think that record was so successful because you went left, because you decided that, like, yo, we're gonna start this shit off with a poem, and like, this has never been done before? Like, do you think that because you decided to make the move that no one else would have made, that people, the listener, would have been like, oh, this shit is dope?
You know what it is? I am somebody that I don't do hypothetics well. Like, I know it worked. I can't tell you exactly why it worked.
And that's all you gotta say. Like, I'm with that.
And try to make up something. But what I will say is, it basically gave me the understanding that we know how to make music that people will enjoy. Because I think what happens so much, you know, and trust me, I can go down this path and get really deep. But what happens so much is someone realizes that you have a talent in making music.
Mm-hmm.
And then they want to tell you how you should make the music. When it's kind of like, well, if I didn't have the talent, I wouldn't be mad of you telling me, but you like what I do, but you want to tell me what to do when it comes down to that. Now, I'm not against somebody giving suggestions, but it was just one of those things that so many of these song ideas were some of the same ideas that we gave to those record companies that probably ended up in that box.
Right.
So it was one of those things that I remember, you know, shopping stuff and giving it to people and not getting a call back. And then Jill's album came out and I shopped the same stuff and you got to, oh my God, this is incredible.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And instead of me kind of trying to call out what I knew it was, I understood. You know, it's kind of like, okay, you know what? I can't go in that box in order for you to hear it.
Right.
Like I went in the same music went into that box the first time, but now that I got your attention, you listen to it and you're like, oh my God, this is great. You know, and it was harder. I understood because I had the experience, but trying to explain to all of the other producers down there, they couldn't understand. Well, it's the same shit we gave them 6 months ago.
Right.
And I'm like, hey man, unfortunately, this is the way that they play the game. I'm not even going to say we played it, you know. But it's just, you know, there's arguably nothing that I like about the music industry. No.
Ditto. Because
Pretty much, you know, pretty much across the board.
I want to talk about Philadelphia because Nigel and I mean, you know Nigel well. We're just met. Love it. You're a big fan, of course. But like we are sort of obsessed with Philadelphia, especially the music from Philadelphia. And one thing I find that about Philadelphia music and the musicians is there seems like there's a common thread, and it goes back chronologically. Like we're talking about Jill Scott. I feel like we can trace Clifford Brown all the way to Jill Scott just through Philadelphia music.
Yeah.
I feel like New Orleans has that too, but not everywhere has that. Now, what's the thing about Philly that makes y'all so connected, and what's up with that scene? Because then also it seems like in Philadelphia every couple of decades, like 19 people pop off all from the same
pop
crew.
off.
Yeah, I'm
Dude.
what is going on in the water down there that's
It's
making
Angelo's. I'm trying
Right.
to tell these motherfuckers
Right.
it's Angelo's, man.
It's the pizza.
It's the cheesesteak.
You know,
man.
let me tell you, I love my city. I love my city to death. We have absolutely no unity.
Wow.
Like what you see and what you hear, it probably would have been tenfold if we had the unity that we should have had. And it was literally, you know, the beauty of it is, you know, when I started making music and I got the studio, the first batch of producers were Victor Duplay, Craig King, and James Poyser.
Mm-hmm.
So we're all connected somehow. James Poyser and Vic ended up starting Axis Entertainment. They were in Larry Gold's studio was a block away from A Touch of Jazz, and Larry Gold had Axis Entertainment in the building. He had, you know, it was about 5 or 6 studios there. So the entire Philadelphia music scene was in a 2-3 block radius of where we all were.
It
So
feels
we
like
would
that.
all go to each other's studio and we all knew each other. But it was this competition of no one really wanted to help each other out. And it was really the crabs in the barrel thing, you know, because nobody was really on. You know, the Roots had their share of success, and we had our share of success, and Axis had their share of success. But it wasn't really a thing of we should all come together, sit down, and figure out how we can do this together. a lot of that didn't really come until we got older and almost everybody left. Like, that's the thing that, you know, we're not in Philly anymore.
Right.
You know, we go back and we do stuff.
We associate all
so
y'all with
much
Philly, though.
of it. Yeah, absolutely. And trust me, we all got a lot of love. You know, so much of that I blame on the industry and not necessarily the people, because the industry is set up to keep this crabs in the barrel thing going on. And you know, even down to the thing that I was like, to me, a smart executive would have understood what was going on in Philly and said, we are going to tap into this and milk this for everything that it had. Instead, it was Jill's on Hidden Beach, Music Soul Childs on Def Jam, the Roots, you know, the Roots were on Def Jam and the Roots were on Geffen. Like, it's scattered all over the place. And nobody had a strong enough footing to say, we're going to do it on our own. And that's the reason why it was always scattered. There was always talent in Philly. There was always really great musicians that all played in the church. You know, we used to, when I first opened up A Touch of Jazz, we used to have these Sunday jam sessions that everybody came down from church. And when I tell you, it was Bilal at 12 years old laying on his back singing. You know, it was a young Vidal Davis, a young Andre Harris, you know, a young James Poyser, a young Lil John Roberts, a young Brian Frazier. You know, Philly had 1,000,001 incredible drummers, you know, and then you had the Jameses and guys like that. And what ended up happening was when everything popped off, everybody snatched them up and went on tour. So now, if you were in Philly making music, you were forced to get the next tier. You know, you might have got the ones that weren't quite ready, but you had to throw them in the studio and they had to learn. And then what happened, once they got good, then they went on tour. And we were just sitting there like, yo, like, I'm trying to get somebody to play bass on my shit, but everybody's on tour.
Right.
It became a feeding
We
ground.
had a lot of success with the musicians, but, you know, as far as the producers and just the industry part, it was always a struggle.
Yeah, well, I feel like it might have been a struggle just because, you know, because when, like he said, we listen to TSOP a lot, and you know how much I'm a geek about that shit, and you know, I feel like even through the music, you know, we can always tell when the music is genuine, because you can feel, again, the vibe and where it was made and how it was made and so forth and so on.
Like he said, it all being in the 2 Block radius,
It
feels like that.
Yeah, exactly.
It feels like it was all.
And then when you listen to TSOP, like, that was just one building of just all of the same cats, and they weren't going on tour. Like, when you listen to OJ's Live in London, it wasn't Ronnie Baker, it wasn't Have Mercy Kersey, because they were in the studio working on D.D. Sharp's record or the 3 Degrees and stuff like that. So what you basically saying is like there wasn't really that, because you didn't have the squad there.
But when did that change? Because it seems like it was that up until a point. When did it change? Like in the 70s, it was like that, right? What changed?
Yeah, well, you know what's funny? What I realized, and one of the reasons when everybody left and went to LA, I was the person that kind of stayed, you know, in Philly. And I stayed in Philly at the ridicule of a lot of people. Will's in LA and everything is popping in LA. Why are you in Philly? There's nothing going on in Philly. But logic told me that things go in cycles. And at some point in time, that shit was going to come back around to Philly. And I was like, you know what? Let me just be set up for when this comes that we can capitalize on it. Now, it was a great move. The one thing that no one ever tells you is how long do you capitalize on it? So I might have took about 12 years getting everything set up to be ready. And then the shit hit Philly and it lasted about 9 months. And I was just like, damn. Like that, it was 9 months and it was Neo Soul was the biggest thing in the world. And then people was just like, what's, you know what? Let's go to something else. And that was the only thing that I think all of us hated when you put a label on something, you give people reason to not like the label. And it was one of those things that we didn't look at. We were doing neo soul. We all grew up with soul music. We grew up with the likes of Gamble and Huff and all the rest of these people in Philly who were very much so active. They would come to the studio. You know, Gamble's like a big brother to me, you know, having conversations. Some of the best life lessons I got was from Gamble. It wasn't music lessons. It was life lessons, but it was just having this kind of access, you know, around that you can ask the question and, you know, he'll tell you about how they started and how there were so many distribution houses in Philly and how it just got narrow. But it was one of those things that you really wanted to capitalize when it came back around, because it may have always been here, but people didn't always know. I'm pretty sure that from your knowledge of TSOP, there was a gap before that and Jill.
Right.
Yes.
That's what we was
There
asking.
was
What
a
happened?
dip.
What happened in that gap?
It was yeah, like that's what I'm saying. That gap, it went somewhere else.
Right.
Gotcha.
You know, and it's just, you know, that was one of the reasons why you started to realize that TSOP became more about the catalog than new music. You know, Gamble wasn't in the studio writing and doing songs with that because he understood the landscape. He understood that the landscape sometimes changes, and it's kind of like, okay, but that was the reason why he kind of ushered us in. And, you know, it was the same thing. That it's kind of like, it was my responsibility to usher the ones in after me, you know, after it kind of floated out of Philly. And, you know, like, okay, we got to wait for round 3 for it to come back around again. You know, but I think that's kind of the thing that happens to almost every major, you know, every major city that has a music culture that is there. It comes and it goes. And it doesn't necessarily leave the scene. It leaves the world. There's a point in time when the world sees everything that's going on in New Orleans, and then the world don't see it no more. But New Orleans does.
Yeah.
Right.
And then something happens and the world is going to see it again. It's that light switch, that on and off, that I always felt.
That was a bar right
that
there.
the music
that was a bar right there. That was
nailed it on it. That was exactly what I was talking about.
That's for real.
Can we?
I'm just trying to see.
Let's take. Can we take a break and call you back in like 3 minutes? Jeff?
We're gonna take a short break and call you back because this thing is running out. Because you know we don't have the executive plan over here. So
you got the time limit Zoom.
Yeah, we got time limit Zoom. But we're gonna take a short pause. Hey man, don't be coming on here.
I like that.
Hey man, watch it.
Listen, I like that, man. Listen, you gotta start somewhere.
Sometimes
you gotta start. You gotta start with the time limit Zoom.
We gotta start with the time limit Zoom.
You hang up. See, what you should have did, you should have been smart and lied and just said, "Oh shit, we got cut off," and then called back.
No,
and you would have had extra time.
No, we keep it real.
We keeps it real down here, bro. We don't play that Hollywood shit over here. This ain't that kind of operation. No. We'll be right back after these messages with DJ Jazzy Jeff. Don't you go nowhere. We'll be right back.
Oh, great.
You wild.
Yeah, let's start a new one, Danny. That was awesome. Okay, man. Whew.
Yeah.
That was 40 straight minutes, see?
Yeah,
you said he was going to talk a lot.
I told you.
Well, anyway.
Nah, but like I said, man, like, you know.
It's great.
I think that it's important to have people who on this podcast, you know, who can actually say the things that this is why we have this, is so that we can provide this platform so that people can say the things that need to be said. And you know, if it's one thing that I know about Jeff is that he got some truth bombs for yourself. You know, so
I'm already mind blown already.
Yeah, for real, straight up.
You know what?
So,
And look, he clowned us a little bit because we ain't got the paid Zoom. But
fuck that. We
hey,
broke.
look, if y'all want us to, you know what? We could use more sponsors and also, liking and subscribing to the podcast.
Yep.
Help get our numbers up. We would love to be able to pay for Zoom. So
You know what I'm saying?
so make sure you go like and subscribe right there, y'all. And man, I just want to say, wow, what a great episode. I'm looking forward to part 2, man.
Yeah.
In the meantime, I want to give a shout out to the Brown Hound Sound,
Pound Town.
Danny, Drew, Nigel Hall.
You know what?
all that good
But
stuff.
during the break, we were saying that if you take sounds out of that, it becomes a completely different thing. And I want y'all to say that on your own time. We're not gonna
provide you with the
We're not gonna.
template.
Yeah, exactly. We're not gonna. Yeah, because that'll be a sound bite from hell. Because that, But yeah, we thank y'all for tuning in. We thank DJ Jazzy Jeff for stopping through, and make sure you stay tuned for the second part of that interview, which is also even just as dope. And we thank y'all for tuning in. I'm Nigel Hall.
I'm Derrick Freeman.
We the Shadow People. Peace.